Okay, we're going to talk about the chelicerates, subphylum Chelicerata, which includes our spiders, our scorpions, our horseshoe crabs, not the regular crabs, but horseshoe crabs that you can see right here up in this picture, our ticks, our mites, the list goes on and on. It's a very diverse group, but they all have something in common. They all have these biting, piercing mouth parts that you can see on many of the spiders. So when we look at these organisms, some of our arachnids are in this class. They do have the biting, piercing mouth parts, but it doesn't mean you have to be a spider to be a chelicerate. They also have pedipalps, and on some organisms, those front appendages are pretty big, like on a scorpion. If we go back to this picture, you can see right here, these are pedipalps. These are pedipalps. These are pedipalps. These are not the fangs on the spider. They tend to be oversized in some of the organisms, and they help grab prey, or in spiders, they're used for reproduction to insert sperm. The males have extra large pedipalps. So you can see right here, here is a pedipalp. Here's our chelicerae, meaning it's plural, with the E on the end, but there's two of them, but they're a biting, piercing mouth part. And their body segments are a little bit different than the insects. They don't have 3 segments, they have the 2 segments. They have a cephalothorax and they have the abdomen. Scorpions' pedipalps are enlarged. We call them chilipeds in our crustaceans, like on a crawdad, but they're big pedipalps on the scorpion, even though they were designed the same way. The origin was different because they are different subphylums. And we know that our scorpions can sting. So we just mentioned the cephalothorax in the abdomen on the chelicerates, and we talked about excretion with the Malpighian tubules and coxal glands previously at the very beginning of the chapter. The brain works about the same way. They have very good senses to pick up information. Some of them can see and form images. Some of them cannot. And we will distinguish between the different ones that are known to have the ability to see images and ones that can't. How do they breathe? Well, they have things called book lungs and spiracles and tracheal tubes. So the spiracles and the tracheal tubes for respiration, for getting oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, work the same way that they do in insects. But the book lungs are found internally in the spiders and the scorpions. And if they live in the water, which some of them do, they have book gills, which are a modified version of the surface area inside the lung to allow them to live in an aquatic ecosystem. Well, this is an example of an aquatic chelicerate. Here's our horseshoe crab, and you can see it's got that hard shell. Some of you have seen them at the beach. They've been around a very long time, but they primarily spend almost all of their time in the water unless they're coming out to breed. They do have external fertilization. They're going to eat just about anything that they can find. They're completely marine. I don't believe that there's any freshwater species, and they have been unchanged for over 200 million years. So when you think about dinosaurs and pre-dinosaur times, these organisms were there. So when we look at class Arachnida, we have arachnids here. It includes not only the spiders, but your ticks. So here's an example of 2 of our spiders in our area which are considered dangerous to people. All spiders have venom. I'll say it again, all spiders have venom, but some of the spider venom can affect humans in a way that's extremely dangerous. And these are 2 of them that we find here. Black widow, you can see this red pattern on the belly or the ventral area of the spider. And this is the brown recluse that has a kind of fiddle on its underside. And what can happen? Well, these are bites that have advanced, unfortunately, from a brown recluse. They usually start off as a little pimple-looking structure. Some people think it's a staph infection, too, on your skin. It's like a nice raised welt, but it gets really hot, it gets sore, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you need to go to the doctor if you suspect that you have been bitten by a brown recluse, because it causes necrosis of the skin, meaning it dies. And sometimes it makes a huge area of damage, and people have lost appendages because of being bitten by brown recluse spiders. You're going to find them anywhere, basements. They like to go into your shoes if you leave your shoes outside. So always dump out your shoes before you put them on. Hats included if you keep them outside. Shake them out before you put them on. Okay. The tick. This is a tick that really hasn't fed, and then this is a female that has fed. The females are the ones that are going to eat the blood from mammals or from anything that has blood that they can attach to, and then they swell up and they don't have to feed for a very long time. Seed ticks are out about now. I found one a few weeks ago after going fishing at my parents' and staying outside, of course. But little tiny seed ticks haven't fed on anything, so they're not as dangerous. They're not carrying the diseases from biting another animal and spreading it to you. But by the same token, you still need to be prepared. Remove them from your body, remove them from your pets. Make sure you get the entire head. Don't put any weird chemical on them. Don't light a match and blow it out and put them on the tick to remove it. Really bad idea. Get some forceps, pull it out, get skin as you pull it out to make sure that you have the head, and then use a type of alcohol or disinfecting skin cream on there that you can, something that's going to kill any of the germs that you could have had. Okay, so when we look at spiders, spiders can do something that our other organisms don't. Insects can spin some types of silk, but not used in the same way. When we look at the spiders, they're going to use their silk for lots of different reasons. They're going to use them to catch prey in various ways. They're going to use them to make egg sacs. And pretty well all spiders can make silk, but all spiders don't make webs. And when silk comes out, it's a liquid. It's extremely tough. And the biggest webs that can be made are about 2 meters in diameter. When you think back to Lord of the Rings, yes, they had some colonial spiders there. They also had a very big spider that was scary, that make lots of webs. There are some that make colonial webs. And they're not a huge spider, but they have lots of big webs everywhere. So the web is used to catch their food. And then after the spider catches the insect or anything that it can catch in its web, it's going to bite it with its chelicerae, injecting venom into it. It's going to turn the inside of its prey to liquid. And this is why if you get bitten by a spider, it can cause a reaction. It's trying to digest you as if you were prey. So it's going to keep the food in the web for a certain amount of time. And much of the time, the venom keeps it from spoiling too. So it can go back and eat the prey when needed. So we know that it's extremely tough. I'm going to post some of these videos on Google Classroom so you can watch them. Watch how spiders make their silk. Watch how strong it is. We've also been able to take the genes that produce spider silk protein and insert them into various organisms, including goats, plants, and bacteria, in order to make this thread, because it's fantastic material that we can use maybe even to make a type of Kevlar vest and building materials, lightweight materials for airplanes, for cars. It's not cheap to make. It's not economical right now, but it's something that we might be able to use in the future. So let's talk about reproduction. So when we look at spiders, obviously this is a female. She's carrying her egg sac. We know that the female spiders are going to lay their eggs in these egg sacs and carry them around. And in many regions, the egg sac will survive over the winter, and in the springtime, the baby spiders will hatch out. The male spider is going to insert the sperm using his pedipalps into the female, so we have internal fertilization in our spiders. This is a fishing spider. We have these in our region. I found one in the creek one time, right in the back of the high school. And they hang out on plants near the water, and they wait for something small, like a little minnow or maybe a smaller tadpole or another water bug that's going to be around, and it's going to grab, bite, and wrap up its prey. This one right here is not a fishing spider. This looks like our common garden spider that you can see. Very beautiful spider. They have an open circulatory system, just like the insects, works exactly the same way. And this is a female scorpion that does have babies, and these are our granddaddy longlegs. They are spiders. They're in the arachnid group, but they're not dangerous at all. Their mouth parts don't hurt you at all. You want to see a good movie with the granddaddy longlegs in it, look at Honey I Shrunk the Kids. Great movie, and they used this animal to their advantage. All right, this is a type of sea spider, pretty creepy. It reminds me of the thumb that's found on Spy Kids. I think it's nasty. And this is a picture I took of a tailless whip scorpion in Costa Rica, right outside my room. It was out hunting, just like in Harry Potter. It's pretty awesome. All right, so there's a few more organisms we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about the problems associated with them. We know ticks can be a real issue because they carry Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. There's a lot of other diseases that have been known to be carried by ticks, and there's some brand new ones that are not very common. So whatever we're talking about, make sure that you remove ticks as soon as you can. Another chelicerate are chiggers. They can burrow into your skin. They release waste material that triggers an immune reaction. It causes inflammation and itching in your skin. And you can see these are chiggers over here. You're sitting in the grass somewhere, you're rolling around in the grass, you're going to get chiggers. That's just the way it happens. All right, scabies. Scabies is something somewhat common, and it's passed from one person to another. I think you can get it from animals too. It causes itching, scratching, very, very hard to get rid of, in fact. So if you think that you have scabies, you do need to go to your doctor and get treated and stay away from other people. Highly contagious. And this is the follicle mite. It's harmless. It can cause some irritation in the skin. As you can see, this dermatitis right here that's being caused. And this is a follicle mite. It doesn't seem to cause any problems at all. It's pretty small, and it moves between the nerve endings, so we don't really notice that it's there. Thank goodness. I wouldn't want to feel the creepy crawlies all over me. This is one many of you are allergic to. It's the dust mite. And it feeds on dust, which is primarily skin that has been sloughed off and found in carpets, bedding, and so on. So you have to clean your house in order to get rid of the dust, which will then get rid of the dust mite. And then this is another type of mite. We have spider mites that can attack plants of all kinds. They suck out juices from the plants and cause a lot of damage. All right, the last group is our subphylum Myriapoda. I'm going to see if I can get through this in the 15 minutes. So this is a separate subphylum which includes our centipedes and our millipedes. And they live where it's moist. You have to have moisture for them. So they're going to hide in the ground, under logs, under leaf litter, because they do not have a lipid layer over their exoskeleton like the majority of the other subphylums, at least the ones that are terrestrial, and they dry out very, very easily. They are more primitive. So here's a centipede right here, and here is a millipede. And most are going to be oviparous by laying eggs, or they are viviparous. These guys are in here just because they're in this category, but we don't have any of them in the lab, and I never have found them or studied them. You may see something like this if you're digging in the ground, but it's not super common on the surface. Okay, so our centipedes are Chelipoda or Chelipoda, and they have one pair of appendages per body segment. They also have claws that are modified to be able to bite and inject venom. They're predators, and they eat other organisms, live organisms. They're not really dangerous to people as long as you're careful and you don't let them bite you. There's some pictures of our centipedes. Picture I found of a centipede at Permacat. And then we have the millipedes, which eat dead, decomposing material. They're not dangerous, they're not going to bite you, but they do have a protective mechanism where they roll up in a ball and they release hydrogen cyanide, which can burn your skin if you grab them and you touch them. So they're going to eat dead stuff. We would call them detritivores, not carnivores like the centipedes. And they are really kind of cool. They have this round body shape and they move with a very slow rhythmic motion. They're pretty long. They do not have a million segments though. This is a picture I took from Permacat. And here's some more pictures of our Myriapoda subphylum. last one.